Hey, good afternoon and welcome to Epic. Today, August 24th, I'm so thrilled to be having a very special guest today, Mark LaMaster, author and CEO dad of Friday Night Lights for Father and Sons. So before we get started by introducing Mark, I just want to start the episode as customary with a word or a phrase or a quote of someone whom I think is related to the topic of interest for today. And today we're going to be talking about exceptional parenting and how to go from being a good dad, or good parent rather, to a great parent. So the word for the day came from Proverbs 10, and the word is: a wise son brings joy to his father, but a foolish son brings grief to his mother. So, a wise son brings joy to his father, but a foolish son brings grief to his mother. Something to think about, right? That's Proverbs 10. So, we'll keep that in mind. Let me introduce Mark. Mark, you're going to be on the big screen anytime now. All right, Mark, you're on the big screen. So let me just introduce you. Mark describes himself as a K-loving, listening, Dave Ramsey recommending, blue-proof, coffee-drinking, Nebraska football-following, Jeep Wrangler driving, high-handicap golfing, God-fearing father, husband, and son who wants to share his failures and successes to help you improve your relationship with your son. He seeks to bring you both closer to God. Mark lives in Minnesota with his beautiful bride, Jen, and two amazing children, Hannah and Lincoln. Mark's purpose and passion is to help good dads become great dads by providing intentional, biblically based activities to help them raise their sons to become godly young men. Mark is also the founder of Playoff Parenting, whose mission is to help transform well-intended passive parents into active and intentional playoff parents who teach valuable Christian-based lessons to their children. Wow.
Wow is right.
Wow is right in terms of impressive, Mark. So why don't you take 2 minutes and just broadcast your brilliance. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to author such a fabulous book. I've had the pleasure of reading.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on the show today. And I just want to welcome everybody here. And I know in the introduction it talked about father and son, but really a lot of the concepts are for moms and fathers for their children, whether it's the boy or a girl. So, but really the whole thing started for me, Jessica, back in several years ago when my son was 8. I just decided that I kind of had this feeling like I need to be more intentional with my son. All of a sudden I felt like I had limited time with him, and I need to do something to help him out. And what I didn't know was where to start. So what I usually do when I come up against a challenge is I start researching, I start reading things. And so I did that. I think I reviewed almost every book on dads and sons out there, and watched videos and blogs and all those different things. But I just didn't feel like I found the exact thing that I was looking for. I really needed a game plan. So just in talking with my wife, she said, why don't you write a book? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to write a book. Well, it ended up so happening that I kind of put that off for a while. But then I literally woke up in the middle of the night. Haven't heard this voice since or before, but it said, write the book. And it was such a powerful voice, it actually scared me because it woke me up in the middle of the night. So I got up and looked around and tried to figure out who it was. It was nobody in the house, and I heard it one more time. It was as if God was just saying, I'm talking to you, Mark, and this is the book that you're supposed to write. So I started writing it that night. And ever since then, it's just been my passion and my calling to help parents connect on a deeper level with their sons and their daughters.
Awesome. I can certainly relate to both of those, the message and then the passion, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. So as a parent myself, I have 2 beautiful girls, and you mentioned you have both a boy and a girl, so it makes sense that all the parenting tips that you would want to share would be for both sexes, because I think they're universal. You're absolutely right. So Mark, why don't you take a few minutes and just tell us a little bit about what was the pivotal turning point in your life that led to the desire to want to particularly pick this subject, other than the fact that, you know, you have your children, you receive the message, but why shape it in this way? Why the metaphor of the game and football in particular?
Yeah, you know, the thing about my son and I is what I really, when it came down to it, my son and I love to go to sporting events and play sports. And that was the time that I felt like anytime I was going to be able to connect with him and get to know him better. And over time, I found that by doing something with my son, by playing catch, by just doing any kind of a sporting activity or anything, actually any kind of physical activity, is when he would actually open up to me. And so that was really the premise of the Friday Night Lights for Fathers and Sons, is because it was a memory that I had with my dad, that we would go to games when I was a kid, and that was something that was always special to me. And his dad took him to baseball games, and so it was just this kind of ongoing thing that that football. We're big Nebraska fans, so for any Cornhusker fans out there, I give a shout out to you. But I just it was something about going to that game, and it just resonated with me that it was about sporting events, and so I wanted to be able to do something with my son, and that was what brought us closest together at the time. So
awesome. And can I ask, in the process of writing, because we share that experience as well, what would you say was most illuminated through that process of writing and going through the content and the research, and you formulated it around something that was of passion to you and your son, the game of football, but what particular lessons, you know, did you draw from that process in and of itself that were implemented in the text as a finished product?
Yeah, there's several different lessons come to my mind, and I'll tell you that as a writer now, I can say that I feel like a portion of the book I didn't write. I felt like I was led to write it, and when I go back and read some of the things that I wrote, it still amazes me that some of the things that happened, because I don't remember necessarily writing it, which I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's true. So I know that I was being led to write. The other thing is that, you know, I really engaged my son, and he was a huge part of helping me out, deciding, is this cool or not, Dad? No, that's not that cool, or that doesn't work. So I really did use him, and he helped me to make these different game days. The one that first sticks out in my mind is the lesson about work and money that I have in one of my game days. And, you know, growing up, my parents were both had jobs, worked hard, but for a work relocation thing that they did in 1978, they ended up moving, and that was in 1978, like I said. And if anybody remembers what 1978 was, it was when the interest rates went up to 18 or 19%. So they ended up having double house payments for about 5 years. And so money is always a stressor in most families, as it is even today. Mm-hmm. And we weren't immune to that. So I didn't grow up without. I never, I always had, but money was, if there was an argument or if there was a stressor, it was money. And so when I was growing up, I knew that this is not something I wanted to do. But I got married, had a couple kids, and fell into that trap myself about the materialism that's going on in this world. And so we decided we needed to do something about it. So we went through Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey, and over time, being intentional and taking action and telling our money where to go instead of it mysteriously disappearing, we modeled how to handle money God's way to our children. And I think that is one of the most powerful things that we have done, because money is typically something that can end up in divorce. Money fights can end up in divorce. And we wanted to be strong and biblical with the way that we handled money. And it's not easy. There's a lot of sacrifice and a lot of challenges with that. But that's something that we really showed our kids. And that lesson is in the game day. I kind of plan an activity around that. But it's hard work, and it's managing money God's way. So that's one of them. I'd like to share another one if I could with you guys. The other one is, another lesson is character and integrity. And I think that's actually one of the most important ones, and I actually led off with that in my book. But I think that that character and integrity are pivotal into raising your kids, because the character kind of seeps through everything that you do. And I want to teach our kids, I believe that we should teach our kids that, character is built during triumphs, but it's also built during tragedies, and maybe even more so during tragedies. So I just really want to help integrate that character integrity into our kids, and some of those lessons are so powerful. In my book, actually, what I want to do for you guys today is I want to give away, I built a training camp. It was around my entire program, and what I want to do is to give that video to you guys today, and I'm going to show you a link in just a second, but it goes through the whole game day, and it's just really powerful because it shows different examples of how to build character and build integrity in your kids' life. So if I could do that, is it okay if I show that?
Of course.
That right now?
Go right ahead.
So here's the link, and it's just marklamaster.com/free video. marklamaster.com/free video.
You might want to lift that just a little, Mark, just a little bit, because your lower quarters. Yeah, there you go.
So marklamaster.com/free video. Thanks, Jessica. So that's something I want to give you. I'm really excited about this lesson because I use a couple different movie themes. I refer to some clips about that, and it's all packaged in a fun and exciting game day for you to hang out with your kids and also teach them the lessons at the same time. So those are two things that are really powerful to me. And I have one more if we have time, but if not, we can move on certainly.
Thank you, Mark. I mean, I just want to recap because these live streams are wonderful. You're hearing, but a lot of people are more visual learners. So I like repeating what I hear myself as an active listener on the Hangout. So if I heard you correctly, there are two main lessons that you learned about parenting through this experience and through your own experience and through your experience of yourself with your parents as well. Right. And those being finances being a huge main stressor in families, and how to manage, and showing, reflecting godly management of what His abundance is in your life, and showing integrity you mentioned, and showing character, and how that seeps through every aspect of parenting. Really, I mean, if I can take a few quotes, it's, you basically raise a child in the ways, and he's not going to depart from them. But in order to do that, you have to be walking that path yourself, and you have to be very intentional about it so that you are modeling the behavior that can be emulated by them. So absolutely. I honestly agree with your two top. I know that there are several more, but those are the two top. I guess one of my questions is, you had what I would consider an ideal family system where you had two parents both working, a household with two heads. How would you answer the question of how to utilize your strategies in your game days, perhaps for a single mom who has a son?
Yeah, so that's a very important part of this, and I'm very aware of that, and I'm blessed that I had the traditional family. And so as far as it goes, I've had a couple people that have gone through, that I've coached, that I've talked with, that I've met with, and it's really powerful stuff. So let me just give you an example of a guy I'll call John. He's a single dad that's been divorced, but he has two grown kids, but he also has a 13-year-old at home. And so what he did was he actually bought the book and then connected with me, and we started talking together about how he could do this. And what he's done is he's taken his time. That's kind of the traditional, he gets his kids every other weekend and a couple months, or like 6 weeks in the summer, that kind of a custody type thing. But he's intentional about that time that he has with his kids, and he's making the most of it. And over the first few games, it was a struggle for him. It was a challenge for him because, he wanted to do the things that he wanted to do that they historically been doing on the weekends. And now his son is saying, "I really want to do another game day. I want to get to know you better, Dad." And he said it's so powerful, and it makes him feel like he is making that impact and deepening that relationship with his son. And so it's so cool. Another cool example of this, as far as as a single mom. So there was a gentleman, a pastor that's doing this as a men's ministry down in Texas, and 10 guys showed up with their sons, and a mom with her son, and he was a little bit like, what are you doing here? Well, she goes, you know what, my husband isn't around, and she goes, I need to help him become the man that God intended him to be. And so she's taking it and adapting the principles that are in the book, that are in the program, because she doesn't have that other head of household to be with her to help her raise her son. And so she's taking it upon herself, and I admire that woman. I'm just so proud of her for doing that. Another thing that you can do is definitely look to another male mentor. Maybe it's a family friend, maybe it's an uncle, an older sibling. But there are certain things that men can teach their sons, but if not, the women, the mother in the family can absolutely step in and help raise that son. She just has to take the action to do it. So those are the couple different examples that I have.
Awesome, Mark. Thank you. I mean, that opens up a whole other genre for you. I can see the next book. Cool.
I know. It's amazing because, when people start, when moms and dads, admit their shortcomings or admit their challenges and struggles, it's so much easier for people to talk about it, because not one of us on this call, not one of us on anywhere is a perfect parent. And to allow ourselves to admit that, it's very powerful. And once we start talking about it and having the conversation, we can then work together and build a community around that and help each other out. Because we've all been there, and everything is, there's certain things that happen to certain people and you think it's only you, but it hasn't. It's happened to somebody else as well. So it's pretty powerful.
Awesome. Very well said, in that, we have to recognize that there is no parenting manual, is there? I mean, we do have a manual for life, and there are several lessons in there, but I'm just saying, the Bible doesn't speak to all the different dyads and dichotomies that can exist in different families, right?
Absolutely not.
You know my passion, Mark, and you know that one of my passions is definitely, to speak on behalf of those that have experienced some trauma when they were children. And so I'd like to shift a little bit if we can, and I'm going off the white page and I apologize, but it just dawned on me as we were talking, right? And that is, how do you think, and I know you've touched this in your book, so I want to bring it up, how do you think the current culture that our children are growing up with, in particular, all of the information that's being thrown at them through social media and through their peer relationships, because even if you have your child with limits in terms of access to social media, their friends are on it, and so they bring it to the conversation and so forth. I know you addressed it, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you addressed in your book some of today's parenting challenges that maybe were not as prevalent, when you and I were growing up, not so prevalent in terms of it just being in your face as it is today. And of course, I'm talking about, the pornography that some of the kids are getting involved in, or some of the sex texting, or some of the inappropriateness of what's going on over the social media, because it really causes disinhibition and an ability to be something that you're not. I know you addressed this. So you want to address that?
Yeah, the three things that I really focused on in my book are internet, pornography, and gaming addiction. And those three things they can go hand in hand, but they can also be separate. The reason I say they can go hand in hand is typically somebody that's a gaming addict is also very susceptible to pornography addiction. There's some research out there that's showing that. So if your son is addicted to, or has a tendency to continue to want to play games and wants that visual stimulation, typically that can lead very easily to a pornography addiction, which is very scary, because about 93% of boys, before they turn 18, will have seen porn. And so I think the most important part is that, yes, absolutely use the technology that's out there. So there are definitely internet filter programs. There's Net Nanny. There's, there's Safe Eyes. I think that's a McAfee product. And there's also my favorite, it's called Covenant Eyes. And the reason it's my favorite is because it was built and it's run by a Christian man. But the things about it is we have to have that we have to use that technology, and it's not expensive. But you're exactly right. That I can watch my son or my daughter on the internet right now and say they're on the computer for 30 minutes a day. But I don't know what's happening when they go to their friend's house. I don't know what's happening when they're at school looking at somebody else's iPhone or iPod. So the most important thing that I think we can do as a parent from a parenting perspective is not to be naive. We can't assume that our kids are the little angels. I'm not saying we can't trust them, but we need to have a conversation with them. We need to talk to them about these different things. For instance, my son can go on SportsIllustrated.com to look at the scores for football games. Within 2 clicks, he can be at a pornography site. It's that easy. It's programmed that way. These guys are smart. These ad people are smart, right? So just have the conversation with them about all 3 of those, the internet, the gaming, and the pornography. It's a tough topic. But if you don't talk to them about it, I guarantee somebody else will.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100% wholeheartedly. And today, after the broadcast, unfortunately, you all, if you know me, you've been on the audience of this show before, you know tech is not my specialty. But what I have is a PDF download that you'll be able to get from the replay or from the website, drjvera.com, and it's a PDF of resources, and it's actual scripts that you as parents can utilize for different aged children in order to speak about these highly sensitive topics. You're absolutely right, Mark. It's not comfortable for any of us. And I speak to children and families all day long, and it's still not a comfortable conversation when it comes to your own. What's your opinion? At what age do you think? Let's talk practicalities. Let's give the audience some practical tips. What do you think would be the best age to allow or to provide your child with a smartphone? Because today, smartphones have almost become a necessity, or so they've been marketed. So what do you think would be an appropriate age to consider?
So that's a question I actually get a lot, not just from friends, but from family as well. And there isn't a one age that your kid is ready. You only are the one that knows what that age is going to be. But it has to do with a maturity level. It's an emotional maturity, and that's something that is going to be. It could be in the middle of their 8th grade year. It could be in when they're in 6th grade. It could be circumstantial as well. But no matter what that age is, it has to have ground rules to it. And I've heard this, and I'm not going to be able to tell you the name of the author right now, but there's an author that talks about it. It might have been Meg Meeker, actually, but she tells of a story where the parents actually had their daughter, who I believe was 13 at the time. I might be wrong on the age, but they make her sign a contract, a handwritten contract that says that she will use it for communication between her and her parents only, that she will not go to a website that they don't approve of. All the internet things are, the filters are set up, and the parental controls are set up on there. So again, it's not just the one age idea, but it's what is circumstantial for your child. But also there's a huge piece of emotional maturity that goes into that. Somebody might be 13 and not be ready for it at all, and somebody else might be 13 and be completely emotionally mature that can handle that, because whatever they put on that, they have to understand is something that can be retracted, or they can't, or not retracted. They can't take it back once they say it. So tough question. I would say probably somewhere in late middle school, like 8th grade into 9th grade, maybe even a little bit later. I know that's a little bit old-fashioned, but that's just my personal opinion. And we still haven't got one for our daughter, and she's 13. So it's an ongoing discussion. My daughter asks about it probably once every couple months. When can I get a cell phone? So it's a struggle. I think parents just need to make that decision together, and then I love that contract thing, because then it holds them accountable, and you can take it away and say, you signed this, but you didn't follow the rules, so now it's our time to take it away. Just to set some standards on it, some boundaries with it.
You're going to laugh, but we do parenting contracts with both of our kids at age 6. And we do amendments every year thereafter.
I'm not gonna lie, because it's powerful stuff. It's powerful stuff. It's
Of course.
awesome.
And the contract incorporates not only, cell phone use, but, going out and social relationships and dating when they get to that point. And, my daughter's 20 years old today, and almost 20 actually, and you'd think, right, in the United States of America at 18 you're an adult, but no, she still has her contract.
Hey, all right, well, that's good to know.
Under our roof. As long as she's under our roof and we're taking care of things, it's a contract.
There you go. I love it. That's great. Good information.
Awesome. So let me ask you, for a first-time parent in this 21st tech environment, what would you say to them? What would be your biggest warning to them in terms of parenting, in particular to a young child? What is it that you would warn them about? What pitfalls have you fallen into yourself in parenting?
Yeah. The biggest thing, the biggest pitfall, and I'm going to say this right up front, I've had many pitfalls and made many mistakes as a parent, and my wife has too, and we just admit that, because if we deny that, then we're not being authentic, we're not being real. And it's humbling experience, but our kids, if we just apologize to our kids, they appreciate that, because they know that that's their responsibility then, is to apologize and take ownership of what they did wrong or what they tried and it failed, because you can always get back up and do it again and try it a different way. But the biggest pitfall I think that we have as parents is that we don't spend time doing things with our kids. And I'm not talking about driving them to and from soccer practice every night. I'm not talking about taking them and their friends to the mall. I'm not talking about even coaching their little league team. What I'm talking about is spending time doing the things that they want to do, that they enjoy doing, even if you don't enjoy it. Because when you do something with your kids, it opens up a lot of communication that will blow your mind. If you take interest in what they're doing and what they're interested in, then that communication line opens up. But if it's just, oh, I go to my kids' practice and I go to all my kids' games and I take them to and from practice and I help them with their homework and all those kinds of things, that's stuff that they have to do or they're choosing to do. It's not something they really necessarily want to do and they enjoy doing. So I think it's that communication and spending time doing things they want to do.
Awesome, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. You're absolutely right. And in other words, you're saying to make intentional parenting a priority, right?
Absolutely.
Because adults have our priorities for work, home, and community, but when we have children, they have to be paramount. It has to be a paramount responsibility. And you have hit on a point that I've often said when I've been asked a similar question, and that is, you need to meet your children where they are. Because if you don't meet them at their level and where they are, then you've missed the mark. You're speaking over them or you're speaking to them and they're not even hearing you.
I love how you said that. I love how you said that. That's great.
Yeah, you
I might have to use that one.
Oh, it's all yours. Okay, so we're going to go into the epic firing piece.
All right.
This section, I'm just going to ask you one really basic question, because my genre is all about passion with purpose to impact community, right? I mean, what a more significant way to impact community than to be an intentional parent and raise up the next generation that are going to make that impact, right? But if you could leave a legacy specific to your son and your daughter in terms of parenting, what lesson would you want them to not leave this earth without?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I would want them to know that, honestly, I'd want them to have a strong faith in God, because no matter what turmoil, no matter what triumphs and tragedies they go through, if they believe in God, God will help them through all those things, whether we understand it or not. But my legacy to my kids is I want them to have a strong faith in God.
Awesome. Mark, I picked up another quote for us that I think will resonate with the two of us, and it's by Pat Williams. Right now, have you ever read the book Leadership Wisdom of Solomon? Have you?
I have not.
Oh, it's a great book. It's all about the greatest leader in history, right? Solomon and all his accolades. But here's the quote, which is a little surprise. You know, it's not surprising to me, but let's just see. It's that, you know, Solomon was undoubtedly, I have to look at it, well instructed by his father, King David. Okay, so Solomon was well instructed, undoubtedly well instructed by his father, King David. So you know, and I know from, you know, scripture review, King David also was fabulous, and he made some significant impacts in his time, but he made some mistakes, right?
Absolutely.
He made some mistakes, and not in parenting, but in his personal life. And those mistakes came full circle at the end of his life, right, and precluded him from being able to do the one thing that his heart so greatly desired, which was to rebuild the temple. And then he has his son, and Solomon is gifted that opportunity to do it. And from everything that I've read, he is the one leader who was able to bring Israel into the golden age, and it's never been there since. However, as I got closer to the end of the book, and you get closer to the end of his story, you find that he felt trapped to the same shortcomings that his father did. So what do you think about that? What do you think about in reflecting in that? What do you think that lesson is there?
Oh, that's a great lesson. I think, you know, if King Solomon, who had one of the, I'm guessing, I would say one of the best dads around, because he taught him so much, and if you just read Proverbs, like you opened up with today, it's so powerful. That's something my son and I read, and we write notes and we write a prayer about what we're thinking about every day. We're doing it for 30 days, and we take a few months off, and then we go through them again, and it's powerful because, you know, I think everything under the sun is what I'm thinking about Solomon. He had everything, but yet he felt like it wasn't ever enough. And the most simple things in life are the things that can make you happy. It's not always the things, the materialism, or the amount of wealth that you have, but I think it's the experience. It's the experience that you have with your family. It's the experiences that you build, not just for your own kids, but for your future generations. And I think that's what we're supposed to do. I think we're supposed to, you know, build a legacy for our children, but then also plant seeds for our grandchildren and our future generations. You know, that's what David did. That's what Solomon did. And it just, I think, maybe I'm off the point on that, but I just think that, I think as parents, we all feel like we're not good enough. But I'm going to tell you right now that we were each created uniquely to parent our unique, the kids that we have. We were uniquely created to create each one of our kids. So there's some parents that have kids with disabilities or behavioral problems. You're a parent that was built by God with the qualities and the character and the skill set to take care of those children. It's not necessarily easy. It's not necessarily a great time. It's not necessarily something you dreamed about, but you were gifted to take care of those kids, and I believe that God didn't give you anything harder than you can handle. So I just want to encourage those parents, and I know I'm getting a little bit off track on the question, but I think maybe that's what Solomon might have been saying, is that, you know, we fall into these traps as parents, but we still have been gifted to take care of our kids like we're supposed to and we're intended to.
Thank you, Mark. I'm going to piggyback on that and tell you that as parents, our children are our gifts, but parenting has to be taken with grace. I mean, what I take away from what we were just discussing is the fact that even though, you know, he had the greatest example as a father and he was given so much guidance, you know, parenting 101 can give our children the foundation that they need, and then we have to trust them to the Lord and have that He will have the grace to lead them down the path they need to walk. So I agree with you that we definitely plant the seeds that take root and hopefully flourish if they, you know, stay on the path and do what they're supposed to be doing. But the grace that we need as parents also to recognize that we have limits to what we're going to be able to do, right?
Absolutely.
You know, we have limits in terms of how much influence we're going to have. But I loved your book. I just want to put it out there.
Well, thank you very much.
I read it like twice, and I was sitting there going, I don't have boys, but there's a way I'm going to adapt to this.
Exactly.
And football is not my thing either, but I figured we've got to figure some other thing out.
Right. And I appreciate your support of it. And you know, it's one of those things where, you know, you write it for your son or you write it for somebody, but then you realize that as an author, just like your book, Rise Up, you can impact so many other people on such a different level. And that's where I think, you know, that's where the passion comes in, because you can only reach so many people, just you or me talking or doing something like this. But if you have a book, people can buy that and they can change their lives, and we may never know, but that's not the point. The point is that we want to share the message that God's gifted to us, or the experiences that God has gifted to us, and share that with a larger amount of people. So I'm proud of you for writing your book too, and I'm just stoked about it that you had your launch and everything's already kicked off, and you're impacting other people too. So congratulations.
Mark, can you share with the audience where, if they haven't had the opportunity to get a copy of your book, where they can find it at this point?
Yeah, so I've got a couple different places. You can get it on Amazon. So just type in LaMaster, LaMaster, or you can type in, it's under barnesandnobles.com. I've also got it on iTunes now, and you can get it through iTunes as well as an ebook or Kindle or Nook. So it's available in all those different formats, because I know everybody has a different way of doing that. The other cool thing that I just got done finally is I've been working on the cover of my hardcover. I had some problems with the cover, but I got it all done and it's all set. So I have a hardcover that's available too, and that's on Barnes and Nobles, or I'm sorry, that's on Amazon.com. So yeah, so thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, folks, that was Mark LaMaster of Friday Night Lights for Fathers and Sons, and he came on and graced me with his presence and his knowledge and his wisdom, and I think that he gave us so many parenting tips that we can walk away with that I urge you, go and buy his book, take advantage of his freedom that Sue, who's helping us produce this show today, is either going to make it available if it's possible. We've had a little technical issue because of changing platforms.
It's up there. It's up there.
It's available on the chat that I can't see, guys, so I'm blind. So, you know, please go to that link and grab your access. It is highly sought after, I mean, truly highly sought after program. And you can see, having met him now briefly and learned a little bit more about him, how you're going to get real, applicable, intentional activities, advice, and strategies that you can utilize today in your parenting. For Epic New Media, I'm Jessica Vera. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Have a blessed day.
Thanks, Jessica.